On a frozen November evening in rural Montana, a single act of kindness at a roadside crash would change two lives forever. What started as a simple decision to help a stranger became something neither of them could have predicted. A story of sacrifice, judgment, and the kind of love that only emerges when you have nothing left to lose. If stories about finding hope in the hardest moments speak to you, consider subscribing. It keeps these stories alive. And let me know in the comments. Where are you listening from tonight? Jack Brennan's hands ached as he gripped the steering wheel of his battered Ford pickup, the heater barely pushing warm air through vents that rattled with every bump on Highway 89. 34 years old, perpetually exhausted, and wearing the same grease-stained Carhartt jacket he'd owned for 6 years, Jack looked exactly like what he was. A man holding his life together with duct tape and determination. The double shift at Morrison's auto shop had left his back screaming and his wallet only slightly less empty than it had been that morning. His phone buzzed with another overdue notice. The math never worked out, no matter how many times he calculated it. Snow swirled in the headlights, thick and relentless. That's when he saw the taillights, red brake lights glowing like warning flares, canted at a wrong angle off the road. Jack's foot hit the brake, his truck fishtailing before the tires caught. A dark sedan sat crumpled against a fence post, the front end accordion folded, steam rising from the destroyed hood. "Hello?" he called out, grabbing his flashlight. "Anyone hurt?" The woman inside looked up as his beam found her face. Late 20s, dark hair tangled, blood trickling from a cut above her eyebrow, wearing a wool coat that probably cost more than Jack made in a month. Her hands shook violently. "I'm going to help you out, okay?" Jack reached in carefully, supported her weight as she climbed out. She wore expensive leather boots completely unsuitable for Montana winter. City girl. Without thinking, he shrugged out of his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. "Thank you," she whispered. Jack pulled out his phone to call 911. One bar. "Wait." Her hand grabbed his wrist with surprising strength. "Please don't tell anyone you found me here, please." The dispatcher answered. Jack stared at this stranger and made a choice he couldn't explain. "Single vehicle accident, Highway 89, mile marker 47, 1 injured, conscious and alert." As he provided details, he noticed her checking her phone with trembling fingers, declining incoming calls. Then she powered it off completely and looked at Jack with pure terror in her eyes. "They'll be here in 20 minutes, Jack said. "Let's get you warm." In his truck, she sat staring at her dark phone screen. "I'm Jack Brennan." "Olivia?" No last name. In the distance, sirens began to wail. As Jack waited with her, he noticed her whispering to herself, hands clenched. When the ambulance arrived, the paramedics checked her over. Minor injuries, no hospital needed if she refused. She did refuse, adamantly. Jack watched the confusion on the EMT's face as this clearly wealthy woman insisted she was fine, just shaken. After they left, Olivia stood in the snow, looking lost. Her car was totaled, tow truck called but an hour away. She had nowhere to go. "There's a diner in town," Jack heard himself say. "Rosie's, only warm place open this late. I can drive you." She looked at him like he'd offered her the world. "Why would you do that?" "Because it's the right thing to do." 90 minutes later, they sat across from each other in a cracked vinyl booth at Rosie's Diner, the only customers at 11 at night. Coffee steamed between them. Olivia had cleaned the blood from her face in the bathroom, but exhaustion had settled into her features like a mask. Jack noticed her hands still trembled as she lifted her cup. "You're not from around here," Jack said. Statement, not question. "Seattle." She stared into her coffee. "I was driving to, I don't know where, just away." "Away from what?" She didn't answer. Instead, she looked at him directly for the first time, really looked at him, taking in his work-worn hands, his second-hand flannel shirt, the tiredness around his eyes that matched her own. "Why are you helping me? You don't know me." "I could be anyone." "Maybe that's exactly why," Jack said quietly. "No expectations, no judgments." Something shifted in her expression. "That's the kindest thing anyone said to me in months." Behind the counter, Rosie, a 60-year-old woman with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue, watched them with undisguised curiosity. Jack knew what it looked like. Him, the town's struggling single father, sharing late-night coffee with a mysterious, clearly wealthy stranger. The gossip would start before sunrise. "I should get you to a motel," Jack said, checking his watch. Nearly midnight. Emma would be worried, though his neighbor Mrs. Chen was watching her. "The Pine View's decent, clean at least." Olivia nodded. As they stood to leave, her phone, which she'd finally powered back on, rang. Her entire body went rigid. Jack watched the color drain from her face as she looked at the caller ID. She declined it, hands shaking worse than before. Then she turned to Jack, and the vulnerability in her eyes nearly broke him. "If I told you I was running from my own family, would you still help me?" Jack thought about his own ex-wife, who'd called him too ordinary, too poor, who'd abandoned their daughter without looking back. He thought about the judgment he faced daily, the whispers about his failures, his struggles. He understood running. "Yes," he said simply. The next morning, Jack stood at the Pineview Motel's front desk, his wallet open, counting out bills he'd been saving for Emma's school field trip. $63 for one night. The guilt stung sharp, but something about Olivia's fear had made the choice automatic, inevitable. He left his number with the desk clerk for her, then drove to his garage. Morrison's auto shop was a cramped, oil-stained building at the edge of Whitehall, where Jack worked alone most days, fixing transmissions and changing oil for customers who barely afforded his already low prices. He'd just started on a brake job when the bell above the door chimed. Olivia stood in the doorway, looking surreal against the backdrop of engine parts and tire racks. She'd changed clothes, still expensive, but simpler. Dark jeans, a cream sweater, that same wool coat. The cut on her forehead had been properly bandaged. "You paid for my room," she said. "Not a question." Jack wiped grease from his hands with a rag that only spread it around. "Desk clerk talks too much." "I can't accept that. Here." She pulled cash from her purse, held it out. "I don't take money for being decent," Jack said, returning to the brake assembly. His pride was about all he had left, and he'd be damned if he'd compromise it. She stood there uncertain. He could feel her watching him work, could sense her trying to figure him out. Finally, she spoke again. "Then let me buy you lunch." "It's the least I can do." Before Jack could answer, his phone rang. Emma's school. His stomach dropped. It was never good news when they called. He answered, listening as the principal's voice explained in carefully neutral tones that Emma had been in an altercation, that he needed to come immediately. "I have to go," Jack said, already grabbing his keys. "My daughter, is she okay?" "I don't know." The fear in his voice was raw, unguarded. As Jack rushed toward his truck, Olivia called after him, her voice carrying across the garage. Jack, I think I'd like to stay in town a few days. Is that crazy? He turned, stunned, but had no time to process what that meant. Emma needed him. Everything else would have to wait. The principal's office at Whitehall Elementary smelled like copy paper and disappointment. Jack sat in a chair designed for someone half his size, his work boots leaving traces of snow on the thin carpet. Across the desk, Principal Margaret Winters folded her hands with practiced patience. "Mr. Brennan, this is the third incident this month," she said. "Emma got into a physical altercation with 2 other students during recess." Jack's jaw tightened. What happened? What did they say to her? The other children made comments about Emma's clothing. She's been wearing the same outfits repeatedly. The children noticed. Shame hit Jack like a fist. Emma had 3 pairs of jeans and 5 shirts that fit. He washed them every other night, hung them to dry because the apartment's dryer had been broken for 2 months. "Kids can be cruel," Principal Winters continued. "But we can't have Emma responding with violence. I'm also concerned about the instability at home. Single-parent household, financial stress, these factors contribute to behavioral issues." There it was. The judgment. "You're failing as a father." "I'm doing the best I can," Jack said quietly. "I'm sure you are. But Emma needs consistency, Mr. Brennan. Stability." Jack stood, anger overriding shame. "She has a father. She has me. We'll figure it out." He found Emma outside the office, small frame hunched on a bench. When she saw him, her face crumpled. "I'm sorry, Daddy." Jack knelt in front of her. "What happened, sweetheart?" "They said I smell like the thrift store. That poor people shouldn't come to their school, so I pushed Brittany." Jack pulled her into his arms, his heart shattering. Walking to the truck, Emma asked the question he'd been dreading. "Dad, why don't we have money like other families?" Jack looked down at his daughter's upturned face. "We have what matters, sweetheart. We have each other. But other kids have new clothes, and their dads don't look so tired." That night, after Emma slept, Jack stared at his phone. Olivia had texted, "Thank you again. If you need anything, I mean it." He typed a response asking for help. Then he saw the eviction notice taped to his door. 14 days to vacate. Jack deleted the message. His pride was all he had left. 2 days later, Olivia walked into Whitehall General Store feeling every eye turned toward her. She'd rented a cabin outside town, but privacy came with scrutiny. The store was crowded. Ranchers, mothers with children, old men by the coffee station. Conversation shifted when she entered. At the counter, 2 women examined her with undisguised interest. The larger one, mid-50s with iron-gray hair, leaned to her companion and spoke loud enough to be heard. "City girl slumming it. Wonder what she's hiding from." Olivia focused on gathering supplies while strangers dissected her. The gray-haired woman stepped closer. "I'm Betty Kovacs. I know everyone in Whitehall, but I don't know you. I'm just passing through." "Passing through? In November? In Montana?" "Sure." Betty's eyes gleamed. "People don't come to Whitehall for scenery. They come here running from something." Olivia paid quickly and left. Outside, Betty's voice carried through the door. "Mark my words. That one's trouble." Olivia blinked back tears. She'd driven 800 miles to escape judgment, only to find it waiting. She was reaching for her keys when a voice called out. "Miss Olivia?" Emma Brennan ran across the parking lot, Jack trailing behind. The little girl's face lit with genuine delight. "You're the lady Dad helped. Are you staying?" "I'm still here." Olivia smiled, glancing at Jack. He looked exhausted, but his expression softened seeing his daughter's excitement. Behind them, Betty Kovach stepped out, positioning herself to hear. "Well," Betty called out, voice carrying, "Jack Brennan, you sure know how to pick 'em? First your ex-wife, now this one?" Some men never learn. Olivia saw Jack's face close off, saw the pain flash across his features. Emma's hand tightened in hers. "Mrs. Kovach, this isn't," Jack started. "Just like nothing's been anything with you, right? That's why you're 3 months behind on rent and your daughter's wearing the same clothes all week." The parking lot went silent. Olivia felt fury rise. "You don't know anything about him," Olivia said, voice shaking. Betty's smile widened. "You've been here, what, 3 days? I know Jack Brennan, known him his whole life. You're just the latest woman for him to lean on." Jack grabbed Emma's hand. "Come on, honey." Olivia watched them walk away, saw the rigid set of his shoulders, Emma's confused backward glances. Betty's laughter followed them. That evening, Olivia drafted texts to Jack, deleted them. Finally, "Are you okay?" No response. The next afternoon, Olivia appeared at Jack's garage carrying homemade soup. She'd spent 2 hours making it, burning the first batch. Jack looked up from an engine. "Olivia." "Peace offering. I made soup. It's probably terrible." Despite everything, Jack smiled. "You didn't have to. I wanted to." She watched him work. "Can I stay?" He gestured to a stool. "Fair warning, I'm not great company." They talked while he worked. She revealed fragments, controlling family in Seattle, expectations like chains, a perfect-looking but empty life. Jack told her about his ex-wife who'd called him too ordinary, who'd left when Emma was 5, who'd made poverty feel like moral failure. "She wasn't wrong, though," Jack said quietly. "I can't even give Emma the childhood she deserves." "You're not failing," Olivia said, reaching out, almost touching his hand. "You're surviving. There's a difference." Their eyes met, something passing between them, understanding, recognition, the beginning of something neither dared name. The door burst open. Emma ran in, backpack bouncing. "Dad! Miss Olivia!" She stopped, looking between them. "Are you friends now?" Jack glanced at Olivia. "Yeah, sweetheart, I think we are." "Can she stay for dinner, please?" Jack started to refuse. Their apartment was too small, too honest about their poverty. But Olivia spoke first. "I'd love to." That night, after Olivia left, after Emma had hugged her goodbye 3 times, Jack found an envelope under his door. Inside, $2,000 and a note. "For Emma's field trip and whatever else you need. You gave me hope when I had none." Oh, Jack's hands shook. He could pay rent, buy Emma clothes, fix everything. But accepting it felt like defeat, like proving Betty right. He sat on his worn couch, the envelope burning in his fingers, with no idea what to do. 1 week later, Jack walked into Rosie's diner carrying the envelope, its contents untouched. He'd rehearsed this conversation a dozen times, but the words still felt wrong in his mouth. Olivia sat in their usual booth by the window, coffee steaming in front of her. And when she saw his expression, her face fell. "You're returning it," she said before he even sat down. Jack slid the envelope across the table. "I can't take this. It's too much." "Why? Because of your pride or because you don't trust me?" "Both." "Neither. I don't know." Jack ran his hand through his hair, frustrated. "Olivia, this is $2,000. People don't just give that away." "I'm not people." Her voice rose slightly, drawing glances from other diners. "You helped me when I had nothing. when I was terrified and alone on that highway. You didn't ask for anything. You didn't expect anything. Do you know how rare that is? That was just being decent. Exactly. Olivia leaned forward. You were decent. No ulterior motives, no strings, and I want to help you the same way. Why is that so hard to accept? Jack stared at the envelope between them. Because I don't know who you are. Not really. You show up in Montana running from something. You won't tell me what. You live in a cabin that costs more per week than I make in a month, and you carry around thousands in cash like it's pocket change. So yeah, I have questions. Silence stretched between them. Olivia's hands trembled as she wrapped them around her coffee cup. Finally, she looked up, and Jack saw tears in her eyes. You want the truth? Fine. She took a shaky breath. My name is Olivia Hartfield. My father owns Hartfield Industries, manufacturing, logistics, real estate, worth about $400 million, give or take. I'm the sole heir. Jack sat back, stunned. You're what? Rich, wealthy, whatever you want to call it. Her laugh was bitter. I grew up in a mansion in Seattle with more bathrooms than you have rooms in your entire building. I've never held a real job, never paid my own rent, never made my own soup before last week. She wiped her eyes angrily. My father's been grooming me to marry Preston Calloway, his business partner's son. It's all arranged. A merger disguised as a marriage. So you ran. I ran. Because I wanted to feel like a real person for once in my life. Not a bargaining chip. Not a name on a contract. She looked at him directly. And then you helped me, expecting absolutely nothing. That's worth more than any amount of money. Don't you understand? Jack's mind reeled. The woman sitting across from him wasn't just wealthy. She was rich beyond anything he could comprehend. And she was here, in Whitehall, Montana, drinking mediocre coffee and trying to give him money he desperately needed but couldn't accept. Why didn't you tell me before? Because I wanted you to see me. Not my last name, not my father's money. Her voice broke. For once in my life, I wanted someone to know me without all of that. Jack reached across the table, took her hand. Her fingers were cold, trembling. I do see you, Olivia, but this doesn't change the fact that I can't take your money. Even if you need it? Even if Emma needs it? Especially then. 3 booths away, Betty Kovach sat with her coffee and her phone, pretending to read the menu she'd memorized 20 years ago. But her ears were sharp, and her eyes were sharper, and she'd heard every word. The moment Jack and Olivia left the diner, Betty's fingers flew across her phone screen. By morning, the entire town knew Olivia's secret. Saturday dawned cold and bright, perfect weather for the Whitehall Farmers Market. Jack had promised Emma they'd go, maybe pick up some apples, let her choose one small treat if he could spare it. He didn't expect to find Olivia there, didn't expect the crowd that seemed to pulse with whispered secrets. They were examining a vendor's honey when Betty Kovach materialized in front of them like judgment incarnate. So the rumors are true. Betty's voice carried across the market square, turning heads. You're some runaway heiress playing house with our town mechanic? What's the game, honey? Slumming for thrills? People stopped shopping. Vendors paused mid-transaction. Every eye turned toward them. Olivia's face burned. Mrs. Kovach, this isn't what? A joke? Because it sure looks like one to me. Betty's smile was vicious. $400 million and you're here buying apples like regular folk? How charitable of you. Emma tugged Jack's hand, frightened and confused. Jack tried to step between Olivia and Betty. That's enough. And you, Jack Brennan. Betty turned on him with practiced precision. Taking money from a rich girl? Guess you finally found an easy meal ticket. Your ex-wife would be proud. You finally found someone to pay your bills. The crowd murmured. Jack felt the weight of every judgment, every whispered conversation about his failures, crystallizing into this single moment. Emma started crying. I'm not. Jack couldn't find words that didn't sound like excuses. Olivia's hands shook. You don't understand anything. Oh, I understand plenty, sweetheart. Betty gestured around the square. We all do. Rich girl gets bored, comes to Montana to feel alive, finds a broke single father to play savior with. Tale as old as time. That's not true, Olivia's voice cracked. Isn't it? So what happens when you get tired of playing poor? When Daddy calls you home? You think Jack and his little girl won't be left picking up the pieces? Betty leaned closer. You people always leave, because this, she gestured at the modest square, the working families, the worn storefronts. This isn't real to you. It's just a vacation from your actual life. Tears streamed down Olivia's face. She turned and ran, pushing through the crowd. Jack called after her, but she didn't stop. Emma sobbed into his leg, and the entire town watched him stand there, frozen, humiliated, unable to choose between chasing Olivia and comforting his daughter. He chose Emma. He always would. That evening, his phone stayed silent. He texted Olivia, "Please talk to me." No response. He tried calling, straight to voicemail. At 10 p.m., a message finally came through. They're right. I don't belong here. I'm going back to Seattle tomorrow. I'm sorry. Jack sat in his dark apartment, Emma asleep in the next room, and felt something inside him crack. Not because of the money he'd never accepted, not because of Betty's cruelty, but because for the first time in years, he'd felt seen, understood. Like maybe his life could be more than just survival. And now that fragile possibility was disappearing like smoke. The next morning, Jack drove to Olivia's cabin. Her car was already gone. The rental was empty, cleaned out. No trace she'd ever been there except the faint smell of her perfume lingering in the air. On the kitchen counter, she'd left one final envelope. Jack's hands shook as he opened it. Inside, a check for $50,000 and a letter in her careful handwriting. Jack, this isn't charity. It's payment for showing me what real kindness looks like. You gave me 3 weeks of feeling like a person instead of a portfolio. You introduced me to your daughter and trusted me with the most precious thing in your life. You defended me when you had no reason to. Use this for Emma, for a better apartment, for her education, for whatever you need. Forget me. I'm going back to the life I was born into. It's where I belong. You deserve someone who can actually stay, someone who fits in your world, someone who won't bring judgment and gossip crashing down on you and Emma. Thank you for everything. I'll never forget you. Olivia. Jack crumpled the letter, his heart breaking. The check fluttered to the floor. More money than he'd earned in 2 years. Maybe 3. Money that could change everything for Emma. But all he could think about was Olivia's face in the farmer's market. The humiliation in her eyes. The way she'd run while he'd stood frozen. He'd let her go. He'd chosen the easier path. And now she thought she was the problem. Thought she didn't belong, thought he'd be better off without her. Jack picked up the check, stared at the impossible number written there, and realized something that made his chest ache. He didn't want her money. He'd never wanted her money. He wanted her. But she was gone. Back to Seattle, back to a life of mansions and mergers and a marriage she didn't want. And he was here, standing in an empty cabin with a check he couldn't cash, because taking it would mean accepting that she was right to leave. 3 days passed like years. Jack hadn't cashed the check. It sat on his kitchen table, a constant reminder of everything he'd lost and everything he'd been too proud to fight for. Emma asked about Olivia every morning. "Is she coming back, Dad?" And every morning, Jack had to say no, watching his daughter's face fall a little more. The garage felt emptier now. Jack went through the motions: oil changes, brake jobs, the endless rotation of broken things that needed fixing. But his mind was elsewhere, imagining Olivia in Seattle, preparing for a wedding she didn't want, believing she'd done the right thing by leaving. It was Rosie who finally broke through. She appeared at the garage Thursday afternoon, arms crossed, face set in determination. "You're a damn fool, Jack Brennan." Jack looked up from the transmission he was rebuilding. "Excuse me?" "That woman didn't leave because of the gossip. She left because she thought you would judge her for her money. She thought you'd see her differently. But you don't, do you?" Jack set down his wrench slowly. "Rosie, I saw you two in my diner. I've got eyes. That girl looks at you like you hung the moon, and you look at her the same way. But she ran because she was terrified you'd reject her the way everyone else has. She left because Betty humiliated her. She left because you didn't come after her." Rosie's voice rose. "She stood there getting torn apart, and you just watched her run. What was she supposed to think?" The words hit like a sledgehammer. Jack had told himself he'd stayed for Emma, but the truth was uglier. He'd been afraid. Afraid of what chasing a woman worth millions would look like. Afraid of confirming every judgment Betty had thrown at them. "I have to go after her," Jack said. Rosie smiled. "Now you're talking sense. But Seattle's 650 miles away. My truck barely runs. I've got $340 and Emma. I'll watch Emma. You go get your girl." Jack stared at this woman who'd served him coffee for years, who'd extended his credit when he couldn't pay, who'd never once made him feel small. "Why are you helping me?" "Because love's too rare to let pride kill it." Rosie pulled out her phone. "Now get moving before I change my mind." Jack checked his bank account one more time. $340. Seattle was 650 miles. His truck got maybe 15 miles per gallon on a good day. The math was impossible. But he didn't hesitate. He kissed Emma goodbye, promised he'd bring Olivia home, and started the engine. 2 days later, Jack walked into the gleaming lobby of Hartfield Industries in downtown Seattle, feeling like he'd stepped onto another planet. Everything was marble and glass and money. He wore his cleanest flannel shirt and jeans, his work boots leaving scuff marks on floors that probably cost more than his truck. The receptionist looked at him like he'd tracked mud into a cathedral. "Can I help you?" "I'm here to see Olivia Hartfield." Her eyebrows rose. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but..." "Mr. Hartfield doesn't allow unscheduled visitors." "I don't want to see Mr. Hartfield. I want to see Olivia." "That's not possible. Now, if you'll excuse me." "I'm not leaving. Not until I see her." The receptionist's smile vanished. She picked up her phone. Within minutes, 2 security guards materialized. Big men in suits with expressions that suggested removing people was their favorite part of the job. "Sir, you need to leave." Jack held his ground. "Just tell Olivia that Jack Brennan is here. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Sir? The elevator chimed. The doors opened, and there she was. Olivia stepped into the lobby wearing a charcoal business suit, hair pulled back severely, makeup perfect. She looked like money, like power, like everything Jack wasn't. But then their eyes met, and her carefully composed face crumpled. Jack? Her voice cracked. He stepped forward, holding up the check, ripped in half. You left this. Olivia stared at the torn check, then at him. What are you doing here? I didn't help you for money. I helped you because it was right. Jack's voice carried across the lobby. And I'm here because I don't care about your name or your family or any of this. He gestured at the marble surrounding them. I care about you. The woman who drank bad coffee in a roadside diner and wasn't afraid to admit she was scared. The woman who made terrible soup because she wanted to say thank you. The woman who played cards with my daughter and made her laugh for the first time in months. Jack, you don't understand. Then help me understand. Because you ran thinking you were the problem. But you're not, Olivia. You never were. Behind Olivia, a man emerged from the elevator, 60, silver-haired, wearing a suit that cost more than Jack's entire wardrobe. His face was hard, eyes colder. Harrison Hartfield. Who the hell is this? Harrison's voice cut like a blade. Olivia looked between her father and Jack. Jack saw the moment of choice in her eyes, saw her weighing everything, her inheritance, her family, the life she'd been born into against something real and terrifying and true. Then she stepped forward, took Jack's hand, and the entire lobby went silent. This is Jack Brennan, Olivia said, her voice steady now, stronger than Jack had ever heard it. And I'm leaving with him. Harrison's face went purple. Olivia Marie Hartfield, if you walk out that door, you'll what? Disinherit me? Olivia laughed, sharp and free. I don't want your money, Dad. I never did. I wanted you to see me, to ask what I wanted. But you never did. So I'm making the choice for both of us. She turned to Jack, tears streaming but smiling. Take me home? I live above a laundromat in Montana. I'm 3 months behind on rent. I have a daughter who needs me. My life is complicated and messy and nothing like this. Perfect, Olivia said. That sounds perfect. They walked out together, hand in hand, past the stunned receptionist and confused security guards and Harrison Hartfield's fury. Outside, Seattle rain fell soft and steady, and Jack's battered truck sat at the curb looking ridiculous next to the luxury cars. Olivia laughed when she saw it. That's your truck? Don't judge. It runs. Mostly. It's perfect. She kissed him then, soft and certain, and Jack felt like he could breathe for the first time in days. 1 month later, a new sign hung above Jack's garage. Brennan and Hartfield Auto Repair. Olivia had invested in the business as a partner, not a benefactor. She worked the front desk, managed books, learned to change oil with surprising enthusiasm. The town gossip had quieted. Betty Kovacs had even brought her car in last week and mumbled something that might have been an apology. On a cold December evening, Jack, Olivia, and Emma stood outside the garage watching snow fall. The small apartment above, their home now, glowed with warm light. Jack turned to Olivia. You sure about this? You gave up everything. Olivia looked at Emma, then at Jack, and smiled. I didn't give up anything. I finally found everything. Emma tugged their hands. Can we go inside? I'm freezing. They laughed. As they walked toward the apartment, Jack paused. By the way, I never thanked you properly. Olivia tilted her head. For what? For crashing into my life. She squeezed his hand. Best accident I ever had. Light spilled from the windows above. Snow fell soft and silent, covering everything in white, erasing old paths, making way for new ones. Inside waited hot chocolate, Emma's homework, 1,000 ordinary moments that were anything but ordinary. They disappeared through the door together, a family built not on wealth or status, but on choosing to believe in each other when the world said they didn't fit. And in that small apartment above a garage in Whitehall, Montana, they built something no amount of money could buy: a home.